The controversy over an NBA general manager's tweet supporting the Hong Kong protesters has dominated headlines over the past few weeks. That tweet sparked a major backlash across the country, and it left the league scrambling to pick up the pieces. Amid this controversy, a new Axios article is examining how U.S. companies do business in countries with authoritarian regimes. The power of authoritarian hush money looks at business dealings with China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. And Axios' reporter Erica Pandey wrote that article and joins me now. Thanks for joining me, Erica.
Thanks for having me.
So, much has been made about the controversy between the NBA and China. Maybe it's because we had some really well-known people like LeBron James get up in front of the cameras and certainly appear to be, if not justifying China's position, not very critical of it. But the league is really only one of a number of companies that have wrestled with this. I remember, just here on CBSN covering, I think, a couple of airlines that removed the Taiwanese flag. Apple got rid of an app. What are some of the challenges that businesses face when going into business in and with China?
So, China is the second biggest economy in the world, and it's also one of the least free countries in the world. And never before have we had a country with this much market power that's also this authoritarian. And so for companies who want to access that massive, massive market of 1.4 billion consumers for their products, they have to kind of play ball with China. And, it's tough to swallow, but we've seen Marriott do it. We've seen all three big airlines do it. We've seen the big tech companies do it. The list is nearly endless of companies that have kowtowed to China just to not get kicked out.
So because of this NBA controversy, I think there's been a lot of talk about whether or not these businesses should be putting their profits before civil rights and human rights. So yesterday here on CBSN, we actually had a former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. He joined us, and we asked him to address the NBA-China controversy. I want you to hear what he had to say and get your take on whether or not this is a valid, viable solution.
We should take the position that the U.S. government should intervene and say to the Chinese, we're going to cost you 3 times as much money as whatever you do to the NBA. So just understand, we are going to protect them. You can't expect a company to take on an entire country. But you can say to that company, you get to come into the shelter of the U.S. government, and we will take on that country on your behalf.
So he's sort of suggesting that, the U.S. government should operate as some sort of, I guess, a little bit of an insurance policy for businesses who want to expand into China, that we know the NBA lost millions and millions of dollars because of this. So he's suggesting the federal government say, listen, if you punish our companies, we will punish you to the same dollar figure. What do you make of that?
I mean, I think that's the right idea. I think that's what experts say we need. We need lots of companies and lots of countries to stand up and, say that we're going to not stand for Chinese bullying together. But I mean, we just haven't seen that happen. I think the NBA could be a turning point because it's such a public case, but China has been doing this for decades, and beyond a couple tweets from politicians, and really nothing has happened. And then if you look at when the U.S. does do something, I mean, take Russia, for example. Russia has been, all intelligence bodies in the U.S. have concluded that Russia tried to interfere in the U.S. election in 2016. There are sanctions against Russia, but companies still do business with Russia and still count it a growth market. So I just don't see the viability of that.
And, you point out in your article that some of these companies, some of these individuals, I'm thinking of LeBron James, they can be very, very vocal when it comes to social issues in the U.S., but there's a difference in how they treat those concerns, human rights abuses and so on, in other countries.
Absolutely. I mean, the Business Roundtable just came together and said CEOs aren't just about, the bottom line anymore. We have to be leaders. But those moral convictions seem to kind of be left on the tarmac when the corporate jet takes off from the U.S. because you see companies doing business with Saudi Arabia after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. You see companies doing business with Russia. And of course, when it comes to China, not only have companies not said anything, some of the surveillance equipment that China uses has actually been sold to it by American companies.
So speaking of that, we've been talking an awful lot about China, and you get why companies want to expand into China. It's a huge opportunity in terms of a larger customer base. But they're also looking to Russia and Saudi Arabia, a lot of the times for money. Can you talk a little bit about that? What makes Russia and Saudi Arabia so attractive to American businesses?
So it's definitely oil. I mean, we've seen that obviously China is sort of a newer trend, but the trend of companies apologizing for the Russian and Saudi Arabian or the Kremlin and Saudi Arabian regimes it really comes down to oil. I mean, if you look at the Saudi Aramco IPO, Wall Street is fighting for that and has been pre and post the murder of Khashoggi, and that's because that could be worth up to $2 trillion. Same goes for oil companies in Russia.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I feel like we'll be revisiting this as more and more companies continue to try and navigate the ins and outs of doing business in a number of countries, but the three you pointed out for sure. Erica Pandey, great article. Thank you.
Thanks so much.